So, we continue. For a deeper discussion, let's talk to Fabrice Potier, who is the CEO of Rasmussen Global, an international company specializing in political consulting. He is currently in Madrid, Spain. Fabrice, great to have you on our channel. Donald Trump has claimed that he had a conversation with Vladimir Putin. In your opinion, how credible is this statement? I wouldn't say I'm entirely convinced that Trump and his team shared any information with the Russian side. However, the key question is, what exactly was discussed, what topics were raised, and what conclusions can be drawn from this? It is also crucial to consider what leverage Vladimir Putin might have gained from this conversation, especially given that, if we look at the situation on the front lines in the conflict country, his position remains unchanged. During his first presidential term, Donald Trump met with Vladimir Putin several times. How would you characterize their relationship? Was it a game of power and ambitions similar to what we observe between Putin and Xi Jinping? Or did their dialogue take a different form? I believe that Donald Trump has a particular affinity for leaders who are perceived as strong men. However, the key question is whose interests he will protect first and foremost. Will it be his own political and economic ambitions? Or will he defend the strategic interests of the United States and the transatlantic alliance, which Vladimir Putin has repeatedly tested and pressured? Now, let's turn to the topic of the conflict country, which you briefly mentioned. In his election campaign, Trump has stated that he will be able to end the armed conflict in this region. We have repeatedly heard similar promises from him. However, does he have a clear plan for how this will be achieved? At this moment, we do not have reliable information on the specific steps he intends to take. However, over the past year and a half, in conversations with people from his inner political circle, we have identified some notable instincts that guide him in politics. The primary one is the desire to end the war as quickly as possible. The only question is how it will be done and at what cost. Currently, we do not see a clear scenario indicating that the parties are ready for a compromise. There is reason to believe that if Trump returns to the White House, his administration may try to influence the situation through sanctions or trade restrictions against Russia if Moscow does not demonstrate a willingness for peace. However, an open question remains. Can such measures truly force Vladimir Putin to change his stance? Looking at his past actions, he has never taken words seriously. He has always focused on real actions and firm decisions. And if at some point the sides were ready for a compromise, what could it look like? In what direction do you think negotiations could develop? I cannot speak on behalf of the government of the conflict country. However, I can say that any resolution will inevitably involve difficult decisions and painful concessions. The main condition, which is fundamental for them, is a guarantee that after the war ends, the conflict country will remain a sovereign and independent state. This factor defines the possible boundaries of compromise. We will stop here. Fabrice Potier, CEO of Rasmussen Global, thank you for your participation. Now, we have with us Maria Mendras, author of the book Permanent War, the Kremlin's Utilitarian Strategy, and a professor of political science in St. Petersburg. Maria, the Kremlin has stated that communication between Washington and Moscow is happening through various channels. What does this mean? This is more of a diplomatic game. Both the Trump administration and the Kremlin use hints and contradictory signals. The Kremlin makes it clear that it does not take Trump seriously, despite his claims about negotiations and upcoming developments. This approach is also a signal to the administration of the conflict country. Putin is not ready for an honest dialogue about ending the war. Nevertheless, Trump continues to insist that he has excellent relations with Putin, even though their interactions during his first term were strained. Meanwhile, there is an attempt to exclude the conflict country from the negotiations. Zelensky has warned that this is dangerous and that more involvement is needed. Wouldn't it be logical for the country directly affected by the war to participate in such discussions? Of course. But the key point is that there is currently no dialogue between Trump and Putin. The source of these rumors is the New York Post, which merely reflects Trump's position without confirming his claims. So, if we objectively assess the situation, we can draw the following conclusions. Vladimir Putin does not demonstrate any readiness for negotiations and does not face serious external pressure that would force him to discuss ending military actions and missile strikes on the territory of the conflict country. At the same time, Donald Trump has been in contact with Zelensky much more frequently than with the Russian leader. According to Zelensky, who confirmed this in a conversation with Trump, a possible agreement was discussed. Trump, as we know, prefers to operate through deals. One key aspect could be that the U.S. gains access to rare earth mineral deposits, which the conflict country is rich in, while continuing to provide military support in return. This suggests that if Trump returns to the White House, there is a high likelihood that he will continue military aid, including supplying naval vessels to the army of the conflict country. In this context, it is hard to see how Vladimir Putin could benefit. At this stage of diplomatic and information warfare, his position appears weakened. Based on all the above, one can assume that the conflict will last much longer than expected. Analysts closely monitoring the situation in City K, Moscow, and several northern European countries agree that at this stage, there is no real prospect for negotiations with the Kremlin. It is far more important to focus on protecting the conflict country and continuing military support. Only in this way can negotiations with Moscow be initiated in the future, from a position of strength rather than weakness. Another factor of uncertainty is the changing stance of the U.S. What course will Trump take if he returns to power? He will have to decide whether to continue supporting the conflict country or reconsider his strategy. The difficulty also lies in the unpredictability of Putin's actions. It is known that a significant part of his entourage, including his military command, did not support this war from the beginning. Moreover, many generals would prefer to end the fighting and bring their soldiers home. However, Putin sees things differently. His primary concern is maintaining his grip on power, which means he will not back down unless he perceives a serious